Jonathan, we were showing those stills of Trump with the California GOP banner behind him. I mean, some of the most unhinged things that he's ever said, and that is going a long way. He said at that event.
Yeah, no, he did. First of all, he used some of George Carlin's forbidden words, which was sort of remarkable. The former president really working blue in California over the weekend. He reiterated his criticisms of Chairman Milley, who is now the outgoing chair and chief of staff, who, of course, he has suggested should be executed for treason. He has talked again about his ongoing criminal trials to the point where, as we'll get into later this morning, Jack Smith's team is re-upping its request for somewhat of a gag order to keep Trump from doing so. He has again suggested that the process of the coming election could be rigged, and the only way he could lose. So it is more of the same rhetoric from Donald Trump in an overheated and perhaps, as you say, more unhinged way, as pressure seems to be building, not just in all of these criminal cases, but this week he's likely scheduled to be appearing in the Manhattan courtroom, and he may lose his entire business.
Well, and you know, Mika, there are two specific things he did where he mocked and ridiculed Paul Pelosi and laughed about it, told jokes about it. And the sickness was, of course, that he's doing that, mocking and ridiculing an 82-year-old man that had a break-in his house and had a hammer slammed into his head, and just the worst, just a nightmare for any family. And the Republican leader is mocking and ridiculing an 82-year-old man who was a victim of political violence. And again, here's the sick part. Really sick.
Sick parts.
There are a lot of sick parts, but the sickest part is the crowd was laughing along to the joke. You know, it used to be that you would tell political jokes, you know, self-deprecating political jokes, and then my daughter walked up to me and said, blah, blah, blah. They would pop up, put a pin in the politician, and everybody would laugh, go, oh, he's just a regular guy. He's one of us. Here, in Donald Trump's Republican Party, an 82-year-old man having his home broken into by just a deranged attacker and then getting hit in the head repeatedly by a hammer. That's, first of all, a politician's punchline. But again, just showing how sick this MAGA crowd has gotten. They're laughing in the audience.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you know, he's talking about you got to do these mother blankers. Like he's talking, you know, I don't know if he thinks he's like a rapper now, but again, these are the people that say, oh, we're upright Christians, we support Donald Trump, and they support violence, and they want their kids going around saying the things that Donald Trump says. I don't think so. Since I've talked about it so much, let's play it.
Together we will take on the ultra-left-wing liars, losers, creeps, perverts, and freaks who are devouring the future of this state like a swarm of locusts. And we'll stand up to crazy Nancy Pelosi, who ruined San Francisco. How's her husband doing, by the way? Anybody know? And she's against building a wall at our border, even though she has a wall around her house, which obviously didn't do a very good job. What they've done is they've gone after opponents so that if you become president or some other job, but if you become president and you don't like somebody, or if somebody's beating you by 10, 15, or 20 points like we're doing with crooked Joe Biden, let's indict the mother. Let's indict.
The Republican Party. They're laughing.
This is the front runner, and the people in the audience
think party.
This is hilarious. And Republicans in Congress, many of them still walking the walk for this guy, Katty Kay. It doesn't look very American. There are other countries that this might look like, but there's a cult-like sense here, and definitely an authoritarian one.
Look, Donald Trump is still the show. I mean, why? I think something people underestimated back in 2016 when he ran was his ability to kind of combine his celebrity entertainment quality with a smattering of politics and a little bit of policy that the base of the Republican Party liked. But key to it is his ability kind of to shock the crowd, to make them feel he's saying things that, you know, they would like to say but didn't feel they could. And it's a rerun of all the things that he did in 2016. When he did it in 2016, the difference is that was the first time he had done it. Now he's still doing the same thing. I mean, you listen to that, and it's a bit like a Trump rally from 2016. There's less kind of entertainment factor, perhaps. There's a little bit less humor. It's a bit darker. It's a bit more American Carnage style, but he's rerunning the same stories. I mean, he's going back over even in that speech in California, he went back over the 2020 was stolen, election was rigged idea. And you wonder when that starts playing in front of a general election audience, which, you know, we're almost there. He's almost just running a general election at this point. How does it still work this time around? Once the whole country is used to it, and we're looking for the policies for the future and some inclination of what a second term would look like, and there isn't very much of that.
Yeah, except this time he's saying mother effer, right?
Yeah.
And most importantly, this time he's now so desperate to up the heat, up the temperature, up the calls for political violence, that he's mocking and ridiculing an 82-year-old man getting beaten up, and the audience is laughing along.
No, I mean, that is something that he has sort of brought this party down, and they laugh at anything and everything just because he said something shocking and don't understand the ramifications, the violence even that our country has seen.
How they would feel if their 82-year-old parent or grandparent was assaulted by a hammer and was clinging on to life, and entire audiences were laughing.
No, it's
about their 82-year-old grandfather getting bludgeoned almost to death with a hammer. Again, we're in America. There's somebody mocking and ridiculing political violence of an opponent. I mean, this is so.
After we have seen it happen,
so different from everything else. And I must say also, I had journalists that weekend, but let's go back, just talk about how sick this has become. Journalists and a lot of people on the right, and also these people remember I told you about the truth tellers? Oh, the truth, they're the truth tellers. They're going to tell you that Joe Biden's an idiot because he talked about politics and abortion. They're going to mock and laugh and ridicule him. They're the truth tellers. These are the people that have their podcasts and their newsletters. They're not going to be like the mainstream media. They're the truth tellers. These were the same truth tellers that were calling up, whispering, going, you know, there's more to it. Yeah. This Paul Pelosi thing. They were lovers. They were gay lovers for years. Oh. Paul Pelosi was a gay lover with this guy. Those were what the truth tellers were saying. And by the way, I remember getting the calls all weekend. The truth tellers. That's why a certain person on social media was a truth teller. I'm saying there's just this sickness that continues to spread. And the so-called truth tellers, this cycle should actually tell the truth. Instead of saying, oh, but let me tell you the truth about Joe Biden.